Yo gamers, my name is Vlad. Welcome to Hollowknight cut content. Edit. I know the Hive has a boss now. Please shut up by Mossbag. Yes, this is a reaction. And also before I get started, abs, rat, balls is the worst boss mechanic I've ever experienced. Just gonna say that. And you know what? Let's get straight into it. Let me just turn up the volume here and let's go. Let's see what was cut. Warning, this video contains massive spoilers for Hollowknight, blah blah. Also consider playing the Mossbag drinking game. Take a drink every time I say well, or when are they going to bring back Firefly for fucks? Okay. Good luck. Let's go. Let's go. I probably didn't need to pause it.
Our story begins in the distant past. If you're too young to remember 2014, just ask anyone. The world was a very different place.
Okay.
Kids used to spend their free time at a place called Radio Shack.
Yeah, obviously.
Famous actor Shia LaBeouf famously decided he wanted to stop being famous. Bill Cosby made his way back onto TV, but this time it wasn't exactly for advertising Jell-O.
That was 11... No. That was 7 years... No, wait. 2014 was 11 years ago, but this video came out 7 years ago. That's such a long time.
But yeah, other than that, and the ISIS invasion of Iraq and that whole Ebola thing, and Ferguson, 2014 was a pretty good year. But the most important event of 2014 happened on November 18th, when two Australians going by the names William Pellin and
Hold on a second. Yeah, much better. Much better. Had to get some light on me.
Ari Gibson launched a Kickstarter for a little game called Hollowknight.
That was in 2014.
We all know about the final product that was created during the 829 days between the launch of the Kickstarter and the release of the game. But what about the content
that's
that
not
was
too
left
bad.
out? A lot can happen in 829 days. That's like 11.51 Kardashian marriages.
Yeah,
well,
of course.
The first thing I do when I start working on a new video is to check the wiki. That way I can just copy-paste it into my script. Okay, let's see here. No, wait, fuck. Damn it. Bingo. This is Hollowknight cut content.
I guess I had to censor that.
Now at the time of writing, the latest content pack Team Cherry has released is the Grim Troop. So it's always possible that some of the stuff mentioned here will get added into the game in a future update. Team Cherry has dropped the trailer for Content Pack 3, Gods and Glory. And it looks good. Could use more Bretta, to be honest. But again, we don't know what else comes this time around. So it's possible Team Cherry might throw some cut content back into the game. So if you see something in this video that is actually in the game, please double check before you go to the comment section and call me a stupid asshole. I get enough of that at home.
The Hive boss.
In Team Cherry's early Kickstarter updates, they showcased a variety of content that didn't make it into the final game. Spooky dungeons, giant bosses, whatever the fuck this is supposed to be. Most of these features actually pop up in the Weird and Wonderful World trailer that was dropped during the final week of the Kickstarter. This video has some pretty neat stuff, so let's just start here. 10 seconds in, we can already see a cut enemy. This guy first appeared in the third Kickstarter update, going under the name Blundering Obelisk. It was described as being a careless and clumsy herbivore. So yeah, he just runs into shit, I guess. So why did Blundering Obelisk get the axe? Well, Team Cherry briefly mentioned the enemy in an interview they gave on the Roundtable Live podcast.
For it. And I think pretty much like every enemy and boss that we conceived and like that went anywhere past like sketches, that once you already created art for it, we used it. No, actually there's a couple of enemies that we didn't use maybe. That weird charging thing with a big nose.
Yeah, that never really had an
enemy. Yeah, the obelisk.
There were a lot of enemies that ended up on the cutting room.
No, not the obelisk.
That weird charging thing with a big nose.
Yeah, that never really had an enemy.
Nah, actually, it doesn't actually fit.
Here's the next interesting scene from the trailer.
Oh, a caster's room
that has an infected tip.
That's
and he's
not
talking like a madman.
It's not a spear.
You remember the
It's a
sumo
staff.
warrior, right?
It's a
The guy who
wand.
sounds like Owen Wilson.
Wow.
I also wonder if there was originally a plan for a mushroom village with more mushroom NPCs. In the final game, the closest we get is the fungal core, but the only interesting thing there is a dead guy who complains about the Pale King. Anyway, I think maybe this scene was meant to show how the infection messes with the mind. I mean, if you look at this guy's dialogue, he does not sound okay. Here, of course, there used to be a backstepping mechanic at some point. That would have been nice.
backstepping mechanic. Honestly, we don't really need that since we have the dash. And you can dash, like, you don't have to face the direction, like, immediately. Like, you just swap direction and you dash that way, okay? But let's take a look at it again.
With the mind.
Maybe a bit
I mean, if
too
you look at this guy's
far
dialogue,
back there,
he does
but
not sound okay. Here we can see that there used to be a backstepping mechanic.
looks cool though. Looks
That would
cool.
have been nice. At about 30 seconds in, we can see the knight using an ability called the Tyrant's Fist. This is clearly an earlier version of the Desolate Dive.
What,
They probably
really?
changed it after the spell system was more fleshed out because, you know, you don't really need magic just to fist things. During the fight with the Gruzmother in the Forgotten Crossroads, we see an interesting statue. The statue is of three
Pale
beings,
King
but
and
one on
the
right
White Lady, and what is this one? Is this just the Hollowknight, maybe?
has been broken. The two remaining statues clearly represent the Pale King and the White Lady, the King and Queen of Hallownest. As for the identity of the third one, well, I've actually got good news. Team Cherry did an interview on PC Gamer back in August of 2017, where they talked about designing the map of Hallownest. In this article, Team Cherry actually provided pictures of old versions of the map. One map in particular is full of information about Hollowknight's development. But what exactly does a map tell us about this statue? Well, we don't actually give a shit about the map right now, but in the margins of the paper that the map was printed on, we can actually see a sketch of these three figures in an identical pose.
Yeah, it's
And
not
we can
that
see the
pixelated,
figure
is
on
it?
the far right looks almost exactly like the Hollowknight. So, what the fuck does this even mean?
Guess
Well, it
it.
could mean that the Hollowknight's adult form
It's
was
not-
originally the design.
Okay, I say that, but it's really not that hard, but I had to, you know.
For another higher
Yeah.
being. The fact that it's broken makes me think that the higher being is an early version of what eventually became the Radiance. What's also interesting
Could
is
also
that the
be the
mandibles shown
Radiance.
here look a lot like the structures found in the dream world. We don't know when the moths ended up in the game, but maybe it wasn't until later in the game's development. But it's interesting to think that the Hollow Knight was at one point the true antagonist of the game. About a minute in, we see something quite strange. Before using the Vengeful Spirit spell, the knight has a white circle that rotates around it. Later
Yeah.
on in the trailer, we see an item in Sly's shop called the White Crystal Ring. So, was this White Crystal
We have
Ring
heard
a
something
power
about that. There are still those rings in the shop right
that
now,
allow
I'm
the
pretty
player to
sure.
charge the
Even though
Vengeful Spirit attack? I don't think there's any way to confirm this, but it's still pretty interesting. Next, we see a pretty crazy ability, Dream Diving. So if the knight uses the Dream Nail on an NPC, it slices the poor bastard's head open, allowing the knight to enter the Dream Well.
What?
The Dream Well is where a bug's hopes, fears, and dreams reside. Team Cherry's plan was to use Dream Diving to give the player unique challenges, involving stuff like running away from a horde of invincible flying nightmares, or
Okay.
fighting off a group of creatures without using the nail. These areas would also give the player unique items and reveal secrets about the NPC's past. There's actually a video showing off the Dream Dive ability on the
Wait, that landing? It was so elegant. It was so elegant. Look.
NPC's past. There's actually a video showing off the Dream Dive ability on the Elder Bug. The dream world here looks
Oh, even
pretty
a
empty.
bridge made from
I guess
it?
the horde of invincible flying nightmares is off today. At the end of the video, the knight comes across a younger version of the Elder Bug. The name of Elder
Oh,
Bug's younger self
little
has become one of the most
guy!
divisive issues in the
It's a
Hollow
little
Knight community.
guy!
Is it Baby Bug? Maybe Child Bug? Maybe his name was Elder Bug. You know, kind of like how people name their kids Gertrude. I'm kind of bummed that this feature isn't in the final game, but I agreed that removing this feature was probably a good idea.
Yeah, it probably
Gibson
was.
explained why this feature was removed in the Reddit AMA Team Cherry held back in August 2017. We did experiment with a full dream diving system, but it ended up feeling really disjointed and distracted from exploring the world. The time we saved making dream levels went into more fully fleshing out Hallownest. It would have been cool to have these little challenges separated from the main game to try out, but then again, we already have the fan favorites White Palace and Coliseum of Fools for that. Speaking of things that people love in games, the next scene with cut content shows the knight swimming underwater. A different gameplay mechanic like this would have been really cool. Also, it would have
But
made more sense if
unnecessary.
the jellyfish in the Fog Canyon were put in here. In the final game, they just sort of float around in midair, like they own the place. Assholes. Anyway, the next thing we see in the trailer is a giant fucking spider. Now that's badass. Just look at this thing, it's huge. When you look at all the bosses that are actually in the game, they are all pretty small. There's nothing like Kraid from Super Metroid, for example. I'm not
True.
saying that there needed to be, but it would have been cool to see how Team Cherry handled it. Now, I'm not sure if Team Cherry had much planned for Deep Nest at this point, but this makes me curious. Was this boss, or any boss for that matter, intended to be a boss in Beast's Den? Well, obviously there was. What else would be making this noise? And don't try to tell me that it's just Hera snoring, Team Cherry. Spiders don't snore. I should know. I just googled it. Holy shit, this trailer just keeps going, doesn't it? After the spider boss, we see an unused NPC, a giant snail. It looks like this is an entire village of snails, and
Yeah.
the shells look like little houses. God, I wish this place was in the game. I know the character design doesn't really fit with the game's atmosphere, but I don't care. This guy's awesome. Remember that old map of Hollowknight I mentioned? Well, it looks like there might have been an area in the resting grounds originally planned for the snails. Of course, this could just be a reference to the snail shamans. It's a toss-up, really. Next, we see Sly's shop. I mentioned the white crystal ring earlier, but there are some other items here too. They're just proto-versions of items that ended up in the game. The most interesting one to me is the greed charm. This shows us that the charm system has existed since the early days of the game's development. Now, Team Cherry must have known that the snail was fucking cool, because he shows up again, and plot twist, he has a kid, I guess. I just love the expression on this guy's face. He's just so fucking done with this kid. And this is so weird that the other snail has a smaller dialogue box. In the final game, there's almost no instance of multiple characters talking at once, other than maybe the Dreamers. I'm bummed that these guys got the
doesn't
boot,
really
but
count,
the
doesn't.
artwork for the shells is still in the game, so who knows. In a Kickstarter update posted in February 2017, Team Cherry mentioned that 2 new backer-designed bosses,
Is he a mosquito?
dungeons, and a new village would be added to the game later. If this upcoming village is entirely new, it's gonna have to be pretty damn good to get me to forget about these guys.
Yeah, the face
That's
is good.
it for the trailer.
Thank
But there are
you.
a few other bits of cut content scattered throughout the Kickstarter page. First, let's look at the stretch goals Team Cherry set during the campaign. The first met stretch goal was the White Palace. This stretch goal promised 2 new boss battles, the Dusk Knight and the King's Golem. According to
Is this a boss battle? Is this actually a boss battle? Does these 2 count as a boss battle? But there weren't any boss battles. The boss battle was the path of pain we made along the way. And sitting on a chair.
Ari from the Reddit AMA, the King's Golem turned into the King's Mold enemy, but he's not sure what happened to the Dusk Knight. The second stretch goal was the addition of 4 more side quests that included 2 more bosses within the game. The first side quest was titled A Nailsmith's Obsession.
Oh no, he
This
looks
side quest
infected.
basically would have dealt with what the Nailsmith would have done after finishing all of the Knight's nail upgrades. In the final game, the Knight is simply given a binary choice to either straight up murder the Nailsmith as requested, or leave him alive. If the Knight leaves him alive, the Nailsmith will somehow
This is what would have happened if I didn't kill him.
find his way to Nailmaster Shio's house, where the two develop a deep love for one another. And
Oh. We're building a full suit of the Kingdom's Knights in their time. I barely ever paid them attention, but Shio keenly remembers each.
Master Shio's house, where the two develop a deep love for one another.
Okay.
And that's it. Not much of a side quest, but at least now we know what the Nailsmith's obsession was.
That's why the comment I got when it was that I actually gave the Nailsmith the big one was Shio's ability. That's why people said, oh, he even used Shio's ability. I get it now. I understand! I understand more! Oh my god, that is actually even more sad. So yeah, let's continue.
Art. Another one of these additional side quests was the Hive.
Mm-hmm.
The Hive was described as being a city inhabited by an ancient and proud race. At the heart of the city would be a sad truth, as well as a boss encounter. Of course, the real sad truth is that there is no boss encounter. Honestly,
Edit, I know the Hive has a boss now. Please shut up. I should really use this one, huh? I should really use this little one. It will be very good for apps red. Because sometimes I try to look down when spikes are coming up across me, but I always get hit, so I don't know.
The hive is a bit of a letdown.
Nah, then I would have to let go of, I don't even know how many notches it is. Even if it's one, I have to let go of either steady body or sprint master. And I am kind of used to both of them now, so.
It is definitely the most underdeveloped area in the entire game.
It is such a beautiful area. It is my favorite area in terms of how it looks.
No wonder Cuphead won Best Debut Indie Game presented by Sick Hydro at the 2017 Game Awards. Team Cherry has admitted that they would like to add more to the hive. Ari mentioned in the Reddit AMA that they might add another NPC or put in little homes for the bees to live in. On top of that, Ari also mentioned a connection between Hornet and Vespa, the dead queen of the hive. The original idea for Hornet was that she was going to be the child of 3 queens. She was birthed by Hera, Queen of Deep Nest, raised by the White Lady, the Queen of Hollow Nest, and trained by Vespa, the Queen of the Hive.
Interesting.
It's from Vespa that Hornet received her current name. This makes more sense when you look at the older maps of Hollow Nest while the game was still in development. You can see here that the hive is actually connected to Deep Nest. In the final game, the hive is about as far away from Deep Nest as you can get, which makes this seem less plausible. But Ari didn't know if this was still the direction they were taking the character.
I mean, wouldn't that just be the case of her traveling far to train, to get stronger? I mean, she has a lot of abilities. We can't wait for Silksong! So now is a good time to mention that if you want to watch the second best playthrough, just behind yours, feel free to subscribe, because it is gonna be a floor special. The Silksong, and I will be generous because I will be streaming it as well, so you guys can also watch that since I'm dual streaming on YouTube and Twitch. But I am generous in the sense of I'm gonna wait a few days, maybe even a week, depends on when it releases, and then I'll start playing. Also depends on where I'm at in terms of my the game I'm playing at the time. So, don't worry guys, I am not gonna spoil anything for you guys, and you guys better not spoil anything for me. Okay, just letting you guys know, okay? So let's continue.
Very possible that this connection between Hornet and the hive is still canon. Another one of the side quests was the Secret of the Stagways, which promised to shed light on the history and fate of the stags.
They're all
I'd say the
dead.
side quest did make it into the final game, with the inclusion of the stag home and the hatched egg hidden within. The last side quest is pretty interesting. It's called The Lantern on the Black Shore. The description for this event says, travel beyond the City of Tears and reignite an ancient flame. I assume that this lantern is the lighthouse found in the Abyss, and that Black Shore is the Lake of Void. The boss encounter for this side quest might have just turned out to be the raid.
This motherfucker. Don't worry guys. I have been practicing. That's also why I'm doing a react video.
But I'm not sure. Now, since we're talking about the Abyss, I figured we should talk about the unmet stretch goal.
And in case you guys are curious, I am getting consistently to phase 3. So yeah, pretty cool.
The Abyss. The Abyss.
But I'm gonna practice so hard that I only need to do the Pantheon 5 once more. And then it is the time where I choke, because I know that I'm gonna I feel like I'm gonna choke, you know.
This expansion would have added 4 new bosses to the Abyss. Now, as we know, the Abyss has no bosses, even though there are creatures there who appear to be alive. Ari Gibson filled us in on what the Abyss expansion would have been in the Reddit AMA. He said that the part of the Abyss that the player finds is really just the Abyss shore, and that the player would have traveled into the Lake of Void to experience the true twisted world of the Abyss. Some have wondered if Team Cherry will revisit the Abyss in future updates, but Ari dismissed the idea in an interview he gave with the Creative Hustlers show.
We could go and do all that, but that just means that we're going to be making Hollowknight for the next 4 years while we keep adding to it. And what we really want to do
is make a new game.
Is do all the Hollowknight that we've promised, and the little extra bits that we just really can't help ourselves from doing. Close that book for a while and work on something completely different. Another game, but obviously like something that is its own world. And then, you know, maybe we'd feel like returning to it in 10 years or something, and then the Abyss might be calling.
The next stretch goal was to bring Hollowknight to the Wii U. So yeah, this has been completely dropped, and now Team Cherry is working on porting the game to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, and they did
this
that.
is great. Hollowknight is going to get a lot of attention once this happens, seeing as the Switch has no good games. What's that? Super Mario Iliad? Don't make me laugh. There was also an unmet stretch goal to bring Hollowknight to the PlayStation Vita, but there hasn't been any news on that. I guess you'll just have to stick to...
Does the Vita still exist? Wait, what? Does it?
Whatever games people play on PlayStation Vita. One last stretch goal that was not met was for the Colosseum of Fools. It would have added 4 new bosses and would uncover the mysteries surrounding the Colosseum. We get a little light on this from, guess who, Ari Gibson. He said that 2 of these bosses are Zote and the Obobbles. The other 2 bosses eventually became enemies. Ari also said that the Colosseum still held a
fucking
mystery,
name.
but still no word on that. I do get a Gladiator vibe from this new trailer. Maybe the Colosseum will tie in with the new Gods and Glory update, but who knows?
Oh yeah,
Anyway.
Gods and Glory hasn't even released at this point. You didn't even know that Absrat was a thing!
One thing
many
I
people
should
didn't.
mention is
No
that
one
the
did.
Colosseum of Fools was originally planned for the Fungal Wastes. Lore-wise, it makes a lot more sense to me that it was placed in an area of the game full of uninfected mantises who believe in the value of strength. I can't say I really have a good explanation for the lore surrounding the Colosseum now that it's in Kingdom's Edge, but I will share a brief summary of my thoughts.
I'm not reading all
Another
of
bit
that.
of content Team Cherry teased during the Kickstarter was a battle with Fierce Drya, who has gone crazy after the death of the Queen of Hallownest. Of course, in the final game, Dryra is dead, and the Queen is still alive. Now, out of the 5 Great Knights talked about in the game, the player only gets to fight one of them. Twice. But some have speculated that the other knights could
Ogrim?
come as dream bosses. However, Ari Gibson dashed all hopes in the Reddit AMA when he said that the 5 Great Knights would be explored more in the future, but not necessarily through dreams. One of the biggest pieces of cut content from Hollowknight was an area called the Forest of Bones.
What the
Team
fuck?
Cherry mentioned this area in an interview on the Roundtable Live podcast when discussing the origins of Hollowknight's map.
It was like we just had the idea was that you had like the middle area and then you had 3 areas around it, so which is why the original area is called Crossroads in the final game. And it's just gonna have like Fungus Land, Rain Land, Bone Land, or whatever.
Bone Land was going to be a massive part of the game, with
Bone
burning
Land.
tar falling from the ceiling, and an area called the Holy Grounds hidden deep within.
Those enemies
From the-
also look new, but you guys couldn't see them because my face was in the way. Honestly, fuck it, I'm just gonna show you guys, okay?
From the ceiling, and an area called the Holy.
Alright, so, which one is it? Which one, here? Yeah, you guys see him? You guys see him right here? Yeah, these 2. Looks like your enemies. It's basically just an older version of the knight. Yeah, let's go back to the correct one. Boom.
Grounds
Let's continue.
hidden deep within. From the Reddit AMA, William tells us that ants were originally planned for this area, which would have been fucking awesome. From the Roundtable Live podcast, as well as an interview Team Cherry did with PC Gamer, we have a little bit better idea of what the Forest of Bones development was like. The area initially started in the top right corner of the map. Apparently, Ari didn't like the idea of an area with lava being at the top, so they moved the Forest of Bones down to where the ancient basin ended up being. According to William, it would have been a large, maze-like area that would eventually lead to the Monarch Wings. After that, the player would have had to then light torches in order to open a gate. Let's take a closer look at this map and see if we can figure it out. The player would have had to enter from Deep Nest. The only other area connected to the Forest of Bones was the White Palace, which connected to the City of Tears via a one-way elevator.
Oh,
The first thing the player would have had to do was probably reach this area right here and get the Monarch Wings, which is indicated on the map by this white circle. After that, a lot more of the area becomes unlocked. The player would then be able to reach these yellow objects, which I assume are the flames that William mentioned in the podcast. After these were lit, the gate here would open up, allowing the player access to this enclosed area. From there, the player would have to reach this green circle, which I assume is the King's Brand. Then, the player could reach this location, which is probably the Holy Grounds. Also, the Abyss and the White
Look like a
Palace will be
mask.
accessible at this point as well. If the player has the Shadow Dash, they can go fight this backer boss over here. There's also a nail art up here for a move called Skyward Slash. I think this is a village. This looks important, but I can't read this shit. I think it says King Moo. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, King
Oh,
Moon.
and there's a snail. Now let's talk about the Holy Grounds. This little area on the map has a picture of a broken Dreamer mask, which is kind of weird, but either way, this must be the location of the Dreamer for the Forest of Bones. So which one is it? Well, the word above the mask here says Hagamol, which was actually Hera's original name. This is kind of confusing, especially since the Holy Grounds have Monomon's mask plastered everywhere, not Hera's. The reason for this is because all of the Dreamers had the same mask very early in the game's development. Okay then, so who are these fuckers?
Yeah,
They kinda
exactly.
look like vessels. Okay, this is probably gonna sound fucking crazy, but follow me on this, guys. In September of 2015, Rock Paper Shotgun published an article that featured pictures from Ari Gibson's sketchbook. This is cool because Ari's sketches are where most of the artwork and character designs for Hollowknight came from. These enemies we see in the Holy Grounds can actually be found in this sketchbook. The sketch details the animation for one of these enemies spawning into the game. Not only that, but there are notes too. These notes detail how a boss fight with a Dreamer would have worked. It says that the boss fight would be incredibly difficult, and that the Dreamer could roar to summon minions. So in other words, these guys are minions who help protect the Dreamers.
Summons
So
minions.
yeah, this whole
bruh.
thing sounds pretty weird. Between this and the broken statue in the church, we can definitely tell that Hollowknight's story was once quite different. It seems like Team Cherry hadn't quite decided what the vessels were yet. Moving on, we also have pictures from Ari's sketchbook of some of the artwork for the Forest of Bones. This first drawing shows off these things
Bone
called
vines.
bone vines. We also see these weird looking structures. Here's a picture of one labeled Ore Pillar. We don't know much about the pale ore found in the final game. Ari Gibson said in the Reddit AMA that they were related to the pale beings. And that actually makes sense. The Forest of Bones was filled with giant corpses, and as they piled up in this hot area, they might have turned into ore with superior properties. There's also this dope lava fountain, and I guess this might be the entrance to the Holy Grounds. And that's about all the information I can find
So
on it.
there is a lot of cool architecture that actually just got cut from the game. Okay, interesting. Because I feel like, that's actually what Hollow Knight needed a bit more of, is cool architecture. Because, you could always see when you were at the Black Egg, the architecture that surrounds it, and, being in the City of Tears. But other than that, it was just mushrooms. Not that there's anything wrong with mushrooms, but still, it would have been nice to see, these kind of things. I wouldn't have minded.
The Forest of Bones. But why did it get removed in the first place?
Oh, I just noticed there's a face here. There's a big fucking face here.
Team Cherry gave two reasons as to why they cut the Forest of Bones. The first reason was that it would have taken a really long time to finish. The second reason they gave was that they thought it would be too much for players.
Do you guys think we may even see Forest of Bones in Silksong? Could be cool, but maybe it wouldn't make sense, or maybe it would make sense. Thoughts? I didn't really bring an argument, but thoughts?
To handle. And those are pretty good reasons, I guess. God damn it. During the Kickstarter, Team Cherry announced a new pledge tier that allowed donors to make their own dungeon and boss. They mentioned ideas like a robot graveyard, and even showed off this drawing for a dungeon called the Carnival of Crustaceans. Yeah, I know, it's super weird. But what's cool is the description up in the corner. It mentions organ music, hanging lights, and tents. All things that made it into the game with the Grim Droop content pack.
Yo.
Not this juggling crab boss thing, though. Sorry, Crabello. There are also a few charms that got left out of the game. Back in February of
Well, I mean, all of these are basically in the game, some not.
2016, Team Cherry posted an article announcing the inclusions of the charm system in
Oh,
Hollowknight.
already one here.
In this post, we see a couple of charms that didn't make it into the final game.
Yeah, this is like some spider shit, I would assume. The ass, leg.
Two of these charms
Fuck.
identified as the Vengeful Swarm and the glass charm Unending Greed. Vengeful Swarm was a charm that would spawn hatchlings when the knight would take damage, so it's sort of like a mix between Thorns of Agony and Glowing Womb. Unending Greed is clearly just the original version of Fragile Greed. There's also some charm designs left over inside the game. There's a dulled out version of Dashmaster, and this one kind of reminds me of Carefree Melody. Now let's talk about some of the unused content that got left in the game. First off, we have this unused sprite sheet of a small enemy. Pretty fucking lame, but hey, there it is. Moving on,
Haven't we seen them
KC
fly
Ghost
around?
released a mod for Hollowknight back in July that gave the player access to some rooms that were left in the game. Unfortunately, these rooms were removed from the game with the Hidden Dreams update, so this mod no longer works with the current version of the game. But don't worry, you're not really missing out on much. Some of the rooms are just untextured areas. There are
Is this a
You're
charm?
not really missing out on much.
But
Some
when
of the
he
rooms are
slashes,
just
bam.
untextured areas.
I feel like I remember that charm, but I don't remember it. You feel me?
There are also
Feel free
some
to let me
pretty
know,
strange rooms that feature tight pathways, one of which
That wouldn't be bad, actually. But it will probably cost a lot to use. A lot of charm notches.
stretches on for quite some time. These two rooms look a lot like the underwater room from the trailer, as well as the room where Un can be found in the final game. This really long ass room is very similar to the room with Un in it, but I wonder if this area was supposed to be filled with acid. Maybe the knight reaches the bottom of this room, where Un can give it the ability to swim back up. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult to get out of this area. I don't know, it's just a theory. There's also some
Good
cut
theory.
rooms from Crystal Peaks, but there's nothing really that exciting about them. I'll show them to you anyway, but I don't have anything to say, so I'm just gonna play some royalty-free jazz music.
It's so loud, too.
Here, we have a room filled with moth statues. This area was shrunk down and hidden within the Glade of Hope in the final game. But even in this earlier version, there is still a ledge for the knight to stand on so it can dream nail this statue. It doesn't do anything here, but the statue in the finished map takes the knight to the Shrine of Believers. There's also a test room for the Dreamers, which contains a static guardian that we can't interact with. He's just sort of chilling. Kinda looks like he's about to flash us, the fucking pervert. The last room is the most interesting.
Oh,
It's
that's
the
a
only cut
bench.
room with an interactable bench. And it's full of string of needles, which look exactly like the needle that Hornet uses.
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
even more interesting is that the exit in
That's
this
where
room
she trained.
leads to the room in the ancient basin where the White Palace once stood.
It was her.
But
It was her
since there's
childhood
no adjoining
home.
exit in this room, the player gets stuck. Is this cut room supposed to be Hornet's room? Or is it just to show that the White Palace had some connection to the Weavers? In the hidden stag station that was added in the Hidden Dreams update, we can see that the thread is still there. Alright, so that's all the boring stuff out of the way. Now it's time to talk
I mean,
about
this
cut
isn't.
dialogue.
That wasn't actually boring, though. But cut dialogue. Hell yeah, let's go. Money, Bafanada.
And trust me, boys and girls, Team Cherry cut dialogue from this game almost as much as the Sick Hydro 5 sensitive razor cuts away unwanted facial hair while helping you protect your skin from irritation. So, we're about to go headfirst into some deep Hollowknight lore. If you don't have a good understanding of the lore, then, well, I'm not mad, but I am disappointed. Now I wanted to start off by talking about the Elegy of Hallownest. The first 4 lines of this poem appear at the beginning of the game, but the rest of the poem can only be found by digging into the game's files. In fact, the Elegy of Hallownest isn't even a complete poem. It literally just
Do we want to
stops
read
midway.
that? Do we want to read this, guys? Do we? Oh, I usually read things in the games. I might as well. Right? Our cherished dreams you granted and delivered more. But in dismay you found too late our desires had no end. What cause to tame our savagery? You gave your all and then gave more. Yet still desires lay unquenched. Unquenched. More dreams remained. Your energy spent. Amongst it sprang a dreadful scourge. That force returned our aggressive urge and turned us back to beasts or husks. Our souls consumed by light above. Within your corpse can still be heard the plaintive cries of one who took our pain and loss and dreams inside itself too. Through its pain we found a truth that must now be confessed. For nothing can contain such things but perfect emptiness. Okay, pretty good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little reading session. I'm gonna read everything in Silksong as well.
In fact, the Elegy of Hollowknight isn't even a complete poem.
Of what I remember.
It literally just stops midway through one of the lines.
Yeah, okay. So I wasn't being confused here.
Everyone and their grandma uses this poem when they talk about Hollowknight lore. So can we really consider these unused lines as canon? At the end of the day, what we are really trying to do is figure out what is written in the Hollowknight lore Bible. That's more important than figuring out what is canonical within the game, if that makes any sense. Anyway, there's this dialogue from the Moss Prophet. Here we get a little insight into what pisses the Radiants off. She doesn't like it when creatures change form, which is probably referring to how the Pale King transformed from a worm. She's also against stealing soul, which is probably referring to how the Knight gains soul from hurting other creatures. And then she talks about how the only crime a god can commit is by dying. Is she referring to how the Pale King might be dead? Or is she just saying that she refuses to die herself? She caps things off by talking about how the empty ones must be destroyed. Myla has similar dialogue to this in the final game. Now the most cut dialogue we have is for the three dreamers.
Not Myla!
In the final release of Hollowknight, the three dreamers talk in brief sentences, and their Dream Nail dialogue is even shorter. It's kind of hard to understand in the final dialogue, but the dreamers have a debate as to what to do with our little bug buddy here. From looking at this cut dialogue, it becomes much more clear what was going on here. Monomon argues that the Knight should be allowed to break the seals on the Hollowknight, while Lurin argues that the seal should remain, since that was the oath the dreamers made to the king. Hera doesn't seem to care, since she's only in it for Hornet. For example, here's a line that was originally meant for Monomon the teacher.
Oh, the way I got through that was so cool. That was so cool. And super unnecessary, but really cool, because it didn't have Isma's stuff. Isma's tier. Sealed that plague and fought with found an answer, but we were wrong. Our sacrifices. What did they win us? A world sealed in stasis.
We sealed that plague and thought we'd found an answer.
He was gonna read it anyway.
Our sacrifices. What did they win us? A world sealed in stasis.
Maybe
here's a line from
maybe Mossbag should just have me read it up for, you know, like I just did it. I just did it before him. So like Mossbag, yo, hit me up. Because he's definitely gonna watch this video. NAOW.
Remember our promise, sister. We three vowed to protect the seal with all our devotion. This isn't really a line from Hera, but more of a note about what she would say. More detached than the other dreamers. Maybe ponders how the Hollowknight feels after all this time. Would he make the same choice again? First few dialogues are very taciturn. There's also a generic line about the Pale King. Our king appears as a bug, and I shall take him as so. But his are traits that transcend our kind. His is a mind beyond ours, deity given form. In sleep, I shall not look upon his like again. The dreamers also had different lines that they would give to the Knight when found in the dream world. Here's a line from Monomon. Only one path I see. The seals must break. Will it bring destruction? Of course. It will bring change too. Let it. To live forever in an unchanging world, death I would fear less. This line is probably from Lurin. Remember our bond, our sacrifice, for the kingdom's sake, for the one we must protect.
Yep.
And again, Hera's dialogue is in note form. Talks about her history. As part of the agreement for her alliance and her role as a dreamer, King gave her a child. Was she allowed to keep this child, or was she taken away? Then, there's this huge monologue from Monomon. Now there's a lot here, and it's hard to know how much of this still reflects Team Cherry's plan for Hollowknight's story. According to Monomon here, the kingdom of Hallownest lasted for a very long time, and had reached a point where civilization had stopped advancing. She also mentions that Hallownest struggled both against the Radiants as well.
I like how he didn't want to read all of this up, so he's just doing a TLDR.
Well as the Void.
Should I read it? Should I read it? Fuck it. So we found each other after all. Can you see me here in this forgotten dream? I can see only light. Our sacred Hallownest. It was so old. An eternal, undying kingdom. Unchanging. They called me teacher, but what did I have left to teach? What did I have left to learn? When the light came, we feared it. Of course we did. So we fought to keep things as they were. Our sacrifices, what did they win us? Simply another kind of stasis. We fought against you too. Struggling against our fate, the light we caged away, it is alive, and we are not. Is that what draws you to it? It's funny, it's a moth, you know. Every moth is drawn to light. Will it bring destruction? Of course. It will bring change too. Let it. To live forever in an unchanging world. That is the only death I fear. I don't know why I read it like that. I just felt like it, so yeah. Subscribe.
I don't really know the full details of the Pale King's relationship with the Void, but we do know that the Void tries to consume any creature or beings around it. The King used the Void for his constructs, but maybe his tampering put his people in greater risk than we know. And what's with we found each other after all? Was Motomon actively seeking the night out? Did Quirrell somehow help with this effort?
That would make
Then there's
sense.
this line,
I mean,
which
they
to me
do
is
talk to
super
us.
Interesting. An empty vessel to bring hope. A strong vessel to bring stagnation. An enlightened vessel to bring an end.
And we are the enlightened
Yeah.
vessel.
This is some Lord of the Rings type shit right here. It almost sounds like some sort of prophecy or something.
I was gonna say something controversial about that, but I am not.
Now I can see interpreting this in two ways. The empty vessel is the Hollowknight. The strong vessel is the main character if the player gets the Hollowknight ending, while the enlightened vessel is the main character if the player gets the Dream No More ending. Another way I like to interpret this is that the empty vessel is the first sibling ever made, the strong vessel is the Hollowknight, and the enlightened vessel is the player character.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two more lines left to show you. These last two are kind of unique. Not only were they
Kind
not
of
used in the
unique.
final game, these two lines were completely removed from the game's code after launch, which leads me to believe they are super juicy. The first one comes from the White Lady. Two halves of a whole. You found your way back to me. We were so unfair, weren't we, to cast you out. Please, you must not hate him. He did what he thought was right. The kingdom had to live. Okay, so this pretty much lines up with what we already know. The
Okay.
King's soul, the siblings being locked away. But that last line is kind of interesting. Anyway, the last line comes from the Pale King. His Dreamnail dialogue in the final game reads, "No cost too great."
Mm-hmm.
But at one point it might have been, "False one, you cannot reach me here." Well,
That is so rude. He's calling us the false one.
it seems to
No. He's talking about the Radiance. See? I corrected myself. You're welcome.
confirm that the Pale King is indeed hiding in the White Palace. But who is this false one? He's probably referring to the Radiance, the false god of Hallownest, right? Or is he? Oh, wait.
Maybe copyright? But I think it doesn't matter. Like, I can literally just mute it because I am listening on multiple audio tracks now. So
Wait a minute. As much as I want to get into this right now, this isn't the right place for deep lore. I'm sorry, guys.
no.
The last
It's
thing I
fine.
wanted to talk about was those sketches that we have from Ari Gibson. I showed off a lot of them for the Forest of Bones, but there are a few more I'd like to share with you. This picture has some pretty interesting stuff. On the far left we can see a giant bug with 10 legs wearing a Dreamer mask. Was there a plan for the Dreamer boss to transform into an actual enemy? I mean, wouldn't a fight with this
That would actually have been fine, I think. You know, instead of just getting the mask like that, you weren't really fighting a boss to get there. I mean, you had to fight a few bosses to get to some phases, of course. But you know, a stalking devout is not really a boss. Depends.
fuckface be pretty easy? I guess we're in his dream, so he could probably do whatever he wanted to us, right? Hit us with a train or something? Then
Yeah.
there's this guy. His mask is similar to the mask worn by Hera and the Weavers, so maybe this was the King of Deepnest or something? But part of me says this guy might have been connected to the Colosseum of Fools. The symbol for the Colosseum also has the 6 eye hole design, And this guy has that same spiked shell that the Lord Fool has. And it looks like this guy is presiding over something. Also, here's the trilobite from Deep Nest. And this confirms that something is supposed to come out of that thing. Over here we see an early design for the White Lady in her little cocoon ball thingy. Now honestly, this last image bummed me out. This is an early design for Nosk. So there are
It's an early design for Nosk. It's funny how this actually made it into the game, isn't it?
two obvious differences here.
It can
First
fly.
of all, he's got fucking wings.
Exactly. And let me tell you guys, that is probably one of my least favorite, though. It is such a long and boring fight. I mean, of course, you can abuse some stuff, but it's just flying from the sides and all that. So boring.
Second, he has a longer tail that he probably used to attack the knight with. Everyone in the Hollowknight community likes to shit on Nosk.
Fuck. What the fuck? That was a mistake.
He's got
The thing is, I have a feeling like there is some forums about absolute radiance with this, because the boss fight, you know, of course there are some maniacs who's really good at the game that just absolutely slams absolute radiance like a million times in a row. I feel like it's still, for me, right now, because I'm still not the best at it, it still feels a bit RNG heavy, even though I can do hitless phase 1, which feels pretty good.
got such great build up to his fight, and then the fight itself is just lame. Imagine how crazy the Nosk
Normal Nosk is actually better than Dreamer Nosk.
encounter would be if it started the same, but then he just turned into this fucking Ridley type motherfucker. And that's it for this video. Sorry it was so short. To make up for it, check out this blog I just posted. In this post I compiled all of the evidence I found for this video into one spot. It's pretty good, to be honest. Very dense and concise. In
Okay.
fact, I don't know why I even bothered making this long-winded video.
I was about to ask, why did he do that? I mean, that's cool, that's cool. Like, I feel like it lacks a bit of stuff here on this website.
I should just stop right now.
No. No. Well, I guess that is gonna be it for Hollowknight cut content. Edit, I know the hype has a boss now, please shut up. Of course, we're gonna give it a like. Remember to check out Mossbag, even though, I mean, I am way smaller than he is, and most of my viewers probably has already watched him. But you know, who knows? Feel free to watch him. It's always good content, you know. Also kind of funny and all that stuff. So yeah, and of course, stay tuned for you know, yeah. So guys, of course it's another react video, but you guys actually do seem to enjoy them. So I am not gonna complain, and of course I am gonna be practicing some more, because I have a feeling like suddenly we're gonna get a surprise release date of Silksong. So yes, I need to practice. And actually start edit the video. I already have the thumbnail at the ready. I'm not gonna show it to you guys though. I guess could blur it to be annoying. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Haha, look at that. Look at, wait, look at that over there. Okay, so thank you all so very much for watching. The friendly stuff reminds us to leave a like and subscribe to stay tuned for more. And guys, you guys are of course not gonna miss this. And until next time. And 3, 2, 1 fades away.